All right, guys, Mr. Antonucci here, and in this video, I want to walk you through two examples of factor by grouping. This is one of the methods that you will have in your arsenal for factoring polynomials. And as the case is here, we have four terms, none of which can be combined because none of them are like terms. And so typically, you'll use factor by grouping when you have four terms in a polynomial and you can't combine any of them. So as the name implies, we want to group some of the terms together. So we'll group the first two, and this is typically how you proceed. You want to group two of the terms together. Now, if we group the first two together, you'll notice that they both have a factor of x. So the GCF of those first two is x, so you factor that out and you get y minus 7. And in the second group, you have 3y minus 21. Now, while there's no x there, it has a GCF of positive 3, so you could factor out a positive 3, and you'd have y minus 7. Now, if factor by grouping is going to work, when you group the two factors together and factor out the GCF of each one, what's left in each set of parentheses should match. So notice I have a y minus 7 in both sets. So what you can actually do is factor out the y minus 7. So y minus 7. And then what you would have left would be an x and a plus 3, and that becomes your other factor, your other set of parentheses. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is our answer. And as always, you can always check your factoring to see if you did it correctly by distributing or multiplying it back out. And now in this case, since I have a binomial times a binomial, I can use the FOIL method to check it. If I do the firsts, y times x is just xy. The outers gives me plus 3y. The inners gives me negative 7x. And the last give me negative 21. Now you'll notice this does match the original polynomial. Now I understand that there's a plus 3y, then the minus 7x, but because of the commutative property, we can rearrange that and write it as xy minus 7x plus 3y minus 21. Okay, and we're back to what we started with. Okay, so in this second example, now if you want to pause the video here and try it on your own, that's fine, but I'm going to walk through it right now. Again, factor by grouping. In this case, we have four terms, none of which we can combine. Also, another thing that you want to look out for is, can you factor out a GCF from all four terms? In this case, we can't. There is not a common variable to all four of them, and there is not a common factor to all four terms. So the next best thing we can do is factor by grouping. So group the first two. And from the first two, we can factor out a 5 and a y. So 5y times 3x minus 2. And from the second group, now I want to mention this. If you notice, you have a minus and a plus here, and no matter what I factor out as far as numbers, and notice we're going to be able to factor out a 4, okay? And once I factor out that 4, I'm still going to have that plus here, and I'm going to have the minus here in the parentheses, which is not going to match up with the signs here. But if I factor out a negative 4 from the minus 12x and from the 8, the minus 12x would become a 3x. Because think about it, if I take out a negative 4, what has to be here so that when I distribute it back in, gives me a negative 12? What has to be a positive 3x? What would have to be for this second term, if I factor out a negative 4, so that if I distributed it back in, I would get a positive 8, right? A negative 2. Now that's one of the tricks to factor by grouping that sometimes comes up, is you have to factor out a negative from one of the sets. Now notice the quantities in each of the parentheses match, and so now I can factor that out as 3x minus 2, and then what's left is a 5y and a minus 4. All right, and that is our answer. And again, you can always check that by foiling this out, or if foiling doesn't apply, you can distribute or multiply back out. Remember, you can always check your factoring by distributing or multiplying back out your answer to see if it gets you back to where you originally started. All right, guys, hope that was helpful. Make sure you comment below if you have another example that you'd like me to make a video of, and maybe I'll be able to make a video about it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications when I upload new videos. All right, guys, take care.